click, if I click in any of the spots here, so it says where it says access title, I can go ahead and put in billions of dollars. So even if I just put my $sign and I'll just put billions like so, and I can go ahead and name my other access title here if this is going to be quarters, depending if you want this or not. If you don't want it, you can go ahead and just select it. Notice how I'm on the outside of it, the handle. So if I select off of it again, and then I select it again, and I just hit delete, it goes away, but I still have that. Well, it looks like I have a little error in here. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this before we move on to the next part. So if you wanted to go ahead and add the access title back again, if I select on this, I can go back, and if you take a look at access titles, if I select it off, then select it on again, it puts it back. It does reset this. So then at this point, you can go ahead and type the information that you want back in here. So if I put quarters here, and this was just going to be in billions here. So I'll just put the $sign here like so and put billions. All right, so we have it labeled, and we have a title up here, and we have our legend. Now we can do this in a quicker way too. That does kind of the same thing. If we look up at the top here, when I have this selected, I want to point out, so when I select this chart, I get these two tabs up here, right here. We have chart design and format. There's many different ways that we can go ahead and make changes to our chart. So we have chart design here. Even if I right click on different objects of it, we can notice how I can change the series type, select the data right from here. If I select a different part of it, it changes again what I have. So in right clicking, you're going to see a lot of things. Now when I'm under chart design and I have this selected, I have the chart elements right here. So I showed you through down here when we're turning them on and off. We do have it right through here where we can go through and pick. So you'll see as I hover over, it changes the chart. So if I just move it over slightly so you can see it, it gives you an idea of how everything's moving on it. Then we have our quick layout. So the quick layout, as I hover over again, you can see how you get that quick view on it. So I'm not selecting any, I'm just selecting off of it and just stays with what I have. So if I just want to point out now that with any of these here, you can start making some changes to the font by using the Home tab too. So if I wanted to change these with bold, and again, there's a few different ways you can do all these different things, but if I use the Home, notice if I hit bold, it bolds. I can change the size of my font if I wanted it larger here. I can select all these and do different things here. So I can go through, change my font. I can change my font color very quickly just by going back to any of these. So I'm going to change my title on this one. So this is going to be 2021 revenue. So I'm just going to put in 2021 revenue just like that by clicking in. And any of these objects too, you can move. If you just select inside and grab your handles, notice I can grab the chart titles and start moving around. Any of these things I can move around inside the chart. So now I'm going to go ahead and add TikTok as part of a series in here. So I'll have the two different ones. And I want to point out, yes, I could have highlighted both of them to start with, but I just wanted to show you how you can add more series as you go along or change any of them too. So if I just have this selected again, I'm going to go ahead and select this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to select data. And I'm going to hit select data. And at this point, I get this data source here. So I'm going to add another one. So you can see YouTube's already there. And actually, I'm going to make a quick change here because I don't want it to 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I hit edit, this was going to be the quarters that I used before. And now I have the quarters updated here. So I'm going to go ahead and add TikTok. So what was the series name here? Well, this is TikTok. I could go ahead and choose if I was going to do Netflix or Disney or add even more. I could go ahead and do that. What's the series value? So if I select this one, I could type it in, but I'm going to highlight the different ones, the different quarters that I want. So I could go ahead, hit enter or select this and hit OK. And now I have, you can see kind of what is happening there. I'm going to go and just make sure that this is the same. I don't think it will matter on this one because I already have my access set here. Hit OK. All right, so it's not quite the chart that I have in the demo one here. So if you look at it, I have it placed a little different. Now, how you can quickly change this. So if I go and I have it selected and I go up to chart design here, I'm going to drop down, and as I hover over different ones, you can see that there's different looks here. So if I go through different ones, I can't find it quite yet. So the one that I used before, so if I'm going to go back to insert here, and I'm going to do a drop down here, and I know I have it kind of in this one right here where it's behind each other. So I'm going to select that one, and now right away you notice a little bit of an issue. Well, TikTok's the smaller one there, and I don't want this to be the YouTube in front because it kind of blocks it out. But I can change the order there. So if I go back to this where the data here, the values, and I'm going to go and select data again. At this point, you can see YouTube and TikTok are here. I'm going to move up TikTok to the top. So if I go and just move it up like this, you can see the switch. Now this is going to be a lot more visible like this. So that's making some change. And if you wanted to make some other changes, remember in your chart design how you can quickly hover over any of these to get, if you wanted any of these here. But anything you choose, you can customize it after too. All right, so let's do a couple more things here to this. And what I want to do is change the color here. I do want to point out anytime you double click on any of these, so even if I was going to double click on quarters, notice that I have format access title open up. And this is where I can be adding, I can be changing things from, solid line. And so when I click solid line, that went around the quarters here. So I'm just going to undo that with Control Z. So this is, you can do some more formatting of the access title of what I selected. So if I go and select this right here, you can see now I could go here and start formatting. Do I want a different color? So this is where if I wanted it, maybe that red color, I could select red and it changes. I do want to point out, even if I go to home and where the fill bucket is here, I can make changes to the color of these at this point. So again, there's multiple different ways that you can do this. And I could go through and do I want anything else changed? Do I want, right now it had no line, solid line. You can kind of see as you go through and change with any of these. So maybe if I wanted it to be kind of a black line around it, I can change how thick it is like this. So if I wanted to stand out like this, now I could go ahead and click on the other one here, the other series here, and I have this selected. You can see it's TikTok. I could go and change it to, maybe I want it to be gray like this, and I'm going to do this is the line here. And so I'm going to go and make this a little thicker here. And so it just stands out. So I have my gray, maybe I could go back. If I want to change it more, I could select it. And if I go back up to my color here, I could maybe make it a little bit darker like this. So now I've made a few more changes to the color. Other things that you can do, which if you don't want these columns like this, if I go ahead and select this, take a look at this over here. If I go to this, I could go to full pyramid. I could go to partial pyramid. You can see how you can quickly change any of these. I'm going to leave it at the box here. I do want to point that out. And then we have series option of gap, the depth and everything. As I make a few changes, you can see how things are being modified in here as I move it. So again, I'm just hitting Control Z on a few of these. I think each was at 150%, like so, to put it back to what I had. So at any of these, you can go ahead, anything you double click on, you can go and change it through the format access title, anything here. If it's clicked on, you can make changes in many different ways. So I just want to point out those different changes to getting the chart to look what you want it to look like. If you do want to add another series to this, click on the graph again, go back to your data, select the data, and this time maybe you want to have Disney here. So if I go ahead and I can hit add again. So what's my series name? Here's Disney. What's my value is going to be? It's going to be this right to here. I'm just going to hit enter, hit OK. And I can change the order again. So depending on where it works best. So if I move it up, Do I want it to be in the front or the back? You can see kind of the preview down here, what is happening. Then I can go through and make all those changes to the colors to make it stand out and even more. Now, another thing you could do, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and Disney's out of there. Another thing that you could do in your type of chart type, and where I'm going to go is just here, change chart type. And remember, there's different ways that I can be doing this, even if I'm right-clicking, change chart type, lots of different ones. So even though the data, and I've created all this, I could go through, I can quickly change this if I wanted a different type of chart that would make sense to you. If you want to learn more about other charts and scientific ones, I have a different video explaining that one too, and I'll put a link down below in the description and up above in the card. But what I want to point out is the combo feature. You can actually have two different types of charts on it. So like I could change one to a line. So if I wanted YouTube to be a line and I wanted TikTok to be a clustered column, I could do that. So if I hit OK, you can see how quickly it changed just like that by adding the two different types. So you can do a combo. So I could Control Z and just put it back at that point. Now, what can we do with this chart? So I want to point out we could add some images to this. So whether or not you have them saved or maybe you have them copied, you could copy and paste them right from the internet. So what I want to do is actually put a YouTube and a TikTok logo right beside it, just to make the graph or the chart a little bit more interesting. So if you want to add images, you can copy paste even from the internet. I have them saved on my computer, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit illustration, picture, and this device, and I'm already in the right folder. So this first one is YouTube. Well, that's really large, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink this to a size that will work a lot better here. And that's still too large, so I'll shrink this down just like that. So even if I want to be putting it next to it, and then I'm going to go get my TikTok one here. So I'm going to go insert illustration, picture from this device, and TikTok. And again, really large here. I'm going to shrink this down. And remember, you can, inside Excel, you can do more things to the picture. When you have the picture selected, if you look under picture format, you can see the different things. I want to crop this a bit. I'm going to get the handles here just because it's a little bit too much around the outside. So I'm just going to leave it just like this, just for an example. And now it's cropped. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit more, and I'll move it down. Now notice that the TikTok and YouTube are very close together there. I can grab this legend and actually stretch it out so it has space like that. So now I want to give it a little bit more room between this maybe, and I could make these a little bit bigger. I don't need these here. I'm going to go ahead, just select them, delete them, gives a little bit more room. But now it's kind of pushing into my legend a bit. If I click right around here, I can be tricky to click. You don't want to click right in, but if I click here, notice I get the handles around everything. I can resize this. If I grab, I'm just grabbing this one here and bringing it in, and now I have more room. So I've changed that the chart area size on it just by selecting on it. I could do this to the big handles, but sometimes then they can change the proportions of it, kind of skew it a little bit. But you can change the smaller one here. I'm just going to leave it right to this point. So I do want to mention again that Excel, when you're creating the charts, you can do the same thing in many different ways. So just like when I select the chart, I have the style here that I can change, but I could also change it through the chart design. So again, different ways to do it, right clicking, knowing that it will get you to it looks like a lot of different things, but it's the same thing over and over again. So what do you do with this chart when you're all done? Well, what you can do, you could save it as a picture. So I could do this by right clicking on it. And if I look, I could save it as a picture right here, and then you could put it into a Word document or maybe a PowerPoint. I could actually copy this and paste this whole thing into a Word document or a PowerPoint also. But I have a different video on kind of the proper way of doing this, because what you can do is link it in a way that that if the data information changes, it will automatically update. So take a look at that video if you are going to be putting this into Microsoft Word or into the Microsoft PowerPoint. I'll put a link also to that down below. So I hope you'd like this tutorial on how to create charts inside Microsoft Excel. Once you get creating and realizing that you can have a lot of fun when you're designing everything, getting the correct data into it. Let me know what else you're wanting to learn inside Microsoft Excel or other tech. Thanks for watching This Time on Teachers Tech. I'll see you next week with more tech tips and tutorials.
Alrighty, so that was a whole lot. Any questions at this point?
David, if you look in the chat, Stan had a question.
Okay, well, let me go. Okay, there's the chat. My Excel home tab, I do not see chart design. Okay, so let's bring up Excel, and in your home tab, there's no chart design. You haven't got a chart yet. So what insert, and then I'll just pick a chart. Now, once I've selected the chart design and format shows up. Does that help, Stan?
Yeah, I missed that first step of insert.
Yeah. So basically, if I just delete that, then if I'm just sitting here in a spreadsheet, I've not got anything selected, I don't have a chart to design. I have to put a chart, then I can do its design.
Stan is muted, but his lips are moving.
Stanley, can we?
Okay. Yeah, all right. I see now that I have to click on, from the home screen, click on Insert and select Chart and Charts, and then I got, but I have to have a chart.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that was a first step, and that's the type of thing that frustrates me when I try to do something. I miss the first step and nothing after that is apparent.
Yeah.
So thank you for that information.
Well, that's just the kind of question that we need to, get you started with, because, as I say, it's very easy to get something that's totally frustrating when you can't, when all of the things they say do, you can't do because they're not showing up. Anyone else have any questions? Was that useful for doing charts, or was this stuff that you've all seen before?
It was useful to me, at least. I have not done charts much, and the one, and I know the person can't cover everything in an introductory video like that. But one thing that when you're demonstrating it next in this meeting, you might address is the text adjacent to the bar graphs, if that's editable in terms of format, maybe putting a background behind it to make it better contrast and things like that, adjusting the text formats.
I think he covered that a little bit. All of the elements that are in the chart, you click on them and the little handles will show up. Once that thing is selected, all of your regular things as far as formatting, sizing, you can drag those handles around to position it. And then if you want to change the background that's there, first of all, I probably try that chart style part. So let me just, I'll just select a little bit there. And then I'm going to, this is the way I do it. I insert a chart like that. And now I've got my chart design. I can select on these things and get different kinds of charts. In fact, I could also go down and see there's all these different kinds of charts that you could do. And this is just a straight little line chart, but I can change the background there, or you can use these things here on the plus sign. these are the elements that you have control of. I can change my titles, my data labels, all these sorts of things, and trend lines. That's a useful thing. All the things you can get up in that thing, you can also get up in the add chart element here. So as he was saying, there's usually 2, sometimes 3 ways of getting to that. I could select a data series, and then I could say add trend line from the data series. I could use the plus chart elements, and I could add a trend line. I could go up to, with this thing selected, I could add chart element, and I could put a trend line on it that way. And so all these things, you can do. So there's several different ways of doing the same kind of thing. What I wanted to do next, unless there's any other questions. Hello, Willie.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to suggest if you're embarking on this charting stuff for the first time is to get your data in a good order. So in good columns where you're going to have adjacent columns that mean something. Because if it's all over the place, if it's on different sheets or different areas, you don't want to make charts out of stuff that's separated by different rows. You don't have a data rows 3 through 5 and another set of data 7 through 10. That just makes it more difficult. So if you can organize your data into,
Yeah. If your data looks like a table, it will probably chart better.
It's a lot easier to block it out to make charts from. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, they are very good at advice, and we'll sort of see some of that in my upcoming example. But before that, Stanley, another question.
When I see what was just shown, that is the chart within a tab, when you go to print that chart, is it easy just to print the chart and ignore everything else? Or should you put that chart on a new tab and have it separate from the page where the data is?
Sort of depends what you want. But if you're interested in the chart by itself, I might actually, as the instructor said, take that, cut and paste it into a Word document or some other document, and then just, you can put all the rest of the text on it, and that way it's you can format it that way. If you print it out from an Excel spreadsheet, you're going to tend to get everything that's in the print area of that sheet.
But you could limit the print area to only the graph.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Again, let me just do that. Insert chart. And then I could go back to home.
Page layout.
Yeah, page layout. And then where's print layout? Draw, no home. Where's
Maybe not.
yeah. Yeah, it looks, yeah, the print area is here, but it's grayed out while that thing is selected. So, okay, it's not selected. Print area, set the print area. Okay, but I could select that much of my sheet and say, set the print area, and then I would be printing that much of my sheet. Does that work for you?
Thank you. Would that be easier than putting the graph on a separate page?
Not, in some ways, if I was wanting to present this, I would probably take and put it into a Word document.
I see. Thank you.
Well, you can copy and paste it onto a new sheet if that makes
Yeah.
it easier. It's really simple. Also, you can
Copy,
do something
place,
which is right,
paste like that.
and then just print the sheet.
Yeah.
but you can also link it back. There's ways of making it link back to the original chart. So if one changes, they both change the same way. It might be linked already, but
Yeah, I think
if you're updating data and it's all sitting on a separate sheet, you kind of want it linked to the original data.
Yeah, and I know this one is linked because when I have it selected, it highlights
Right.
the columns that are there.
Even on the other page, it's still linked. It should be.
So how did you link them?
I
Go
just
to your sheet one that you just made.
sheet one.
Now that's linked. I mean, if you look at the data, if you go to select data, it should tell you where it's from.
Select data, and it took me back over to the original sheet.
Right. So it's still linked to that data, which is good. So you can always work on the chart that's on the sheet with the data, and then when you go to print, that's automatically updated on sheet one.
But even if you move it out to a Word doc, is it still linked?
That's, he was kind of alluding to, you have to set that up a different way, but yeah, you can.
You have to basically not only tell it what sheet it's on, but you also have to then tell it what Excel file it's in. And so the reference gets to be a much longer thing.
Right.
And that Excel file has to stay in the place that you put it. Otherwise, if you tell it to look in the third drawer down and you moved it to the fourth drawer, it won't find it there, and your chart will go blank inside your document. Or actually, probably it'll keep the old data and it just won't update.
It'll copy it as a static chart.
Yeah.
Charting is pretty complex, but you think back to the guys that wrote the program to do the charting, that is really complex. By the way, any idea what sort of program they used to write this charting program?
Well,
Yeah,
all of Excel is written in C++.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But this is Microsoft. So what they probably have done over the years is they found there was some little company that had a chart add-on to Excel, and they did a good job, and they bought the little company for $500 million and took that technology and incorporated it into there. I mean, I know they did that with math type for all of their math type setting stuff and lots of other things. So the code base for these Excel products is probably 50 different little companies' codes, patched together to make it a functioning thing. And because in some ways, I don't think they're going to pay someone to recreate something that they can just buy.
Sure, yeah. I'm impressed with it. It looks very, very good.
Yeah. What I wanted to do on the second thing here is this is a little chart of some data that some people took for looking at a little experiment. In fact, I'll just quickly show you the experiment here. What you do is you have a tube full of some liquid with a dye in it, and you shine a little light through it. And depending on how concentrated the dye is, so that basically if I move this, make the dye darker, less of the light gets transmitted through. And if the dye gets, if the dye goes away, more of that gets transmitted. So that's sort of what they're doing is they're looking at this guy here, and then they have some, and what they did is they took that thing and they put some bleach into it. So the bleach is reacting with the dye and taking the color out of the dye. So they got a time versus percent transmission. And part of the law that it governs is basically it's based on the absorbance, and the absorbance is just some effectivity times the length times the concentration. So what they did is they had to change the transmission to absorbance. So you do that with a log. I've got this set up there. Basically, I just take this guy here and then do that. I can do that. I can do that. Control D fills down the data. So there's my absorbance. I could graph the absorbance. But what I really want to do is look at my concentration. So I can take the same thing here and then fill that down. And then as he showed, what I want to do, I wanted to do a concentration versus time. So I can select this column, hold down my control, select that column, and then insert my chart. And that shows me my concentration versus time. And it's going down. Well, yeah, the dye is taking away the bleach is bleaching the dye. But there's three different ways this could happen. It could happen linearly, it could happen proportionally, or it could happen proportionally squared. And we want to figure this out. So it says if it happens linearly, that should be a straight line, but it's not. So what I want to do is I want to say equals ln of the column before, and then take that and fill down. And now I want to make another chart. I'm going to take time, hold down the control, pick log of concentration, insert another chart. Well, that one looks a little bit straighter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The third option, I could say, well, it's 1 over this, so this is equals 1 over that value. I take that thing, pull that formula down, hold times, control, hold concentration, insert chart. And now I've got 3 charts. Come on. Now I've got 3 charts here, but only which one of those looks straightest? Concentration, log, or 1 over?
The log.
The log one looks good. Okay, so I can select that, and then I can say, oh, I want to add a trend line. And yeah, trend line, and there's linear line. I can click on that, and like they have said, this little thing comes up so I can form it. So I can actually display the equation and the R value on there. And then from my chemistry experiment, I can take that coefficient and say the slope here is minus the rate constant, and the intercept up here is log of my initial concentration. And from that, I can do my chemistry calculations and everything. But this is what they do in one of their chemistry things. But this is where I often are teaching them how to do charts like that. And so it's fairly simple. As Willie said, if you get it laid out in a nice table like this, it's really easy to make the charts. And then I can take these charts and say, oh, well, I want to make that look a little bit prettier this way. Oh, my concentrations, let's say that column here. Oh, one of the other things I wanted to show you, which is actually sort of fun, on this guy. Yeah, basically, if I click on this cell here, he's got its value, but instead of showing up as B2, I just renamed him stock concentration. Same for this one here. I renamed him EL. And then when I wrote my formula, I can write C6 over EL. So I can do it by the name of the cell, by renaming it. It's still D6, but or in this case, EL is still D2, but it's now got the name EL, so I can refer to it by name when I'm using it in a formula. That was one of the other things I found is quite nice, because it actually allows me to use the names of things. So I'm not trying to remember, well, what does that cell refer to? Well, no, it's my stock concentration. My time 0 concentration is my original stock concentration times a little dilution factor. That's how I got that number. And that's sort of pretty much what I had for this. And I will stop sharing at this point.
David, did you do this animated?
This thing here?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's part of the FET from the University of Colorado. They have a tremendous number of nice little simulations here, where you can basically take this thing. I can make that thing, if I make it wider, it's going to deeper, it's going to
Wow.
You cut down the transmission even more. I can change the wavelength of it. I can turn it on and off. I have a little ruler that I can measure things with. These are very nice things for the students to sort of play with and get an idea of what's going on.
Wow.
So Willie has his virtual hand up.
Yes,
Yeah,
Willie.
I had a comment back on your spreadsheet when you were naming the cells.
Yeah,
Okay, one advantage to that is it fixes the cell as if it's a absolute reference.
that's
Which
right.
is really nice when you're copying things down. You don't have to worry about doing the dollar sign and all that stuff. So that's just an added thing for naming a cell. Even though it's a simple one cell name, it fixes that.
Yeah.
As a constant. We were talking about it a couple weeks ago. There's your pi constant.
Yeah. In general, if I've in a formula, if I'm putting dollar row, dollar column, then I say, let me just give that cell a name.
Right.
All right.
David, would you repeat on how you name a column?
I was going to say, if you go up to the,
Okay, let me say I have pi, and I want to give it the value 3.14159. I just select that column there, and then I come over here.
call it a name box. Yep.
Yeah, and then
Oh, you have to enter the pi. That's right.
okay, yeah, 3.
Yeah, you had to return.
And then I just set pi. And now I can say, okay, I want to say this thing equals pi, and there it is, it picks up the value. If I change this value up here, 3.14, it changes down there as well.
Thank you.
Hank, did you have a question?
No, I want to tell people something that they might find interesting and they could do that I do every week.
Okay.
Week I update a spreadsheet with the prices of 160 exchange traded funds, ETFs. ETFs trade like stocks, but they can, there are ETFs that represent everything from today's value of the S&P 500 to the latest price of the composite of all the defense industries in the United States. And I want to show you how that presents, which I think Excel just can't do.
Okay. I will stop sharing. Would you like to share?
Yes, please. Okay. I start sharing here. And this is what I'm sharing is a spreadsheet that has 3 years worth of Friday prices. If I go all the way over here to the left, it'll go, well, I'm back in 2000, starts in 2019 here, runs all the way to the first week in 2023, namely yesterday, the 6th. And here it has rows for each, a row for each stock with those prices.
Okay.
The reason that I use this program, which is Lotus 123, Lotus has gone out of business, but I still have a copy of Lotus 123
for DOS. And that came to me on the first computer I was ever given by one of our kids. And the reason I'm still using it is I want to look at any one of these. Here are the symbols for each one of these exchange traded funds. And let's say that I want the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The ETF that represents that is DIA. I can now go there and there's the menu. I'm going to, and you'll see here, the top menu is graph. If I now type G, then I get that I can now type N for name. And now I can type use and pull up DIA. And there is the chart for DIA for 3 years of prices. And now I can type the one for, I can just get rid of that and go graph name use QQQ. There is the NASDAQ 100. And all 160 of those charts are available without reconstructing them every week, right up to date. That's why I still use this, because if I wanted to look at 50 of these, one right after the other, I would have, in Excel, I would have to construct 50 of them and put 50 of them .
I think we lost him briefly.
He'll be back.
I'm betting that what he wants to do could probably be done in Excel. He just doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah, I would take that on as a challenge. If he wants to give it to me, I'll be glad to do it.
Okay. Well,
That's what I do for fun.
Yeah, and Willie, what I was thinking that, you can make up a table where the values are some, lookup function from a bigger table, and then just graph what's in the lookup table. Then you just have some selector that says, well, which row which row is my lookup table giving me, and graphing.
Yeah, there's all sorts of neat tricks with dynamic graphing. You could have the names, or you could input the names like he said, and it could pull up the graph. It's not
Okay, it looks like Hank is back in.
okay.
I am.
We can see and hear you.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And while you were away, Willie and I were trying to solve your problem.
Okay, I'm sure Excel can do it. I just, I like the way I am doing it. And you can still run DOS in Windows, in case anyone is interested. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions at this time?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask
Is-
Hank something too.
Is there a way in
you-
Excel?
You people can learn how to use the hand up, and then we'll
Right.
take you in turn.
Go ahead, Will.
You're muted, Will.
I need a function whereby I can execute a calculation upon demand and not have it do it automatically. Is there some way to do that? I don't want this calculation to take place if I put a new number in, for instance. I don't want it to do a new calculation until I tell it to do that.
I
Does that
think
make
we'll
sense?
defer to Willie on that. Sounds like you want to turn off auto calculation.
Yeah, that's a setting in the options in Excel, at least. You can turn off auto calculate, and then you have to manually calculate by pressing F9, I believe it is. Or something.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to do it for just one calculation, not for everything. It's just one calculation that I need to delay until I tell it to do it. It's essentially when I, reset a chart I'm sorry, not a chart, but when I reset um, a spreadsheet, there are times when I just want to reset one particular number on the chart. I don't want it to do everything all at the same time. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just looking, I see 3 calculation options: automatic except for data tables, and manual. And then there's a calculate now.
Oh, okay, manual might do it.
Yeah, manual just means that as opposed to it automatically doing it, you just have to, you can put in 5 different changes and then hit calculate.
Right. So you turn off automatic, and then that just means when you want to update your numbers, you have to manually do it. I mean, you push a button and it automatically updates your program, all your data, all your changes that you made, or all your calculations are all updated. You can't just update one cell and leave all the rest of the cells unchanged unless you
Yeah.
write a macro to do that. That's a little too specific for the question I had for Hank, since I had the floor here, is how did you set up the chart in the first place? I mean, do you have the option in that Lotus program for whether it's a line graph or bar chart or something?
Yeah, you can get a blank spreadsheet and just start filling it in. And when you have the spreadsheet all filled in, then you can tell the program to bring up a chart of a certain area, just as you do in Excel.
Okay.
You
So
tell,
you had to define some parameters, not just
well, yeah, you have to
guessing.
start with a blank spreadsheet, as you do in Excel, and put the data in. I have ways to put the data in every Friday. No.
I'm not sure if Hank's with us. Saul, would you like to have your question?
Well, I was going to ask Hank a question, but I'll wait till he comes back.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, my question to him was going to be, how do you put in those data points? Do you put in 160 every Friday? Do you type them in by hand, or does he have an automatic?
No, I think he brings them in automatically.
I mean,
So-
Excel can actually go out and get your stock prices for you if you want. So
Yeah,
it's
that's what he does.
100 steps ahead.
So as soon as Hank unmutes, he'll be able to answer your question.
There. And yes, I simply go to, I actually get the stock information from a spreadsheet that I keep in Google Drive. And anytime I call that up, it fills in all the information. Anybody interested in seeing that? Because you can all do that any old time you wish.
That's a Google Sheet.
Let's see. Yeah, hold on.
Unless I'm mistaken, Hank, I think Willie was just trying to ask whether you manually enter the 160 new values each week or whether
No.
they're imported from someplace on the web.
They're imported from someplace on the web, which I am about to show you in case anybody wants to import their own list.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
You find that interesting enough? All right. Let's see. I need to, here, I need to go. Come on, I need to go to Google Drive. There we are. Okay. Okay. Back to Zoom. Share screen. Find the place where I set this up. There you are. Here's what I do. I go to Google Sheets and I ask for a spreadsheet. And I enter all the symbols of that I want here for the 160, or whatever that they are, 162. And in the column next to it, I put a formula that says, where does it say? Where does it say? Come on. Where does, let's see. Let's copy that over to here. Oh, I'm looking for the formula.
Function Google Finance parameter 1 is invalid.
Yeah. And I can't.
I mean, it's probably as simple as the formula Google Finance A1 with some date.
Yeah, there is a formula, and I will find out what it is. If anybody wants to know that later, send me an email and I'll dig it out. And I simply copy that entire column of two column, that large double box of 2 columns, and copy that into my spreadsheet. End of answer. Sol.
So this is rather esoteric and probably only means something to Hank and me, but having started also on my own with Lotus 1, 2, 3, but were the menus you went through standard menus in Lotus, or were there those menus you created through macros in Lotus?
I have some macros in Lotus to do various things. As soon as I put in Friday's new prices,
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, yes, Saul wins the esoteric question of the day.
You know, Arlene Way's husband, Peter, probably does tricks with the Excel that it would be interesting if he might come on sometime, Arlene, and show us some of the tricks that he does with Excel.
okay, did Saul,
I took that as a yes.
okay. I'd be happy to show anyone who's personally interested in how that works.
Well, yeah, I suggest perhaps you and Saul could take that one offline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, what Hank answered was sufficient.
Yeah, it's just if anyone else is interested, they and I should have a separate discussion someplace, not necessarily on Zoom.
And if there's no more questions, I would like to pass this over to, is it Will for Q&A?
Yeah, Will and I.
Yeah, Arlene went away, but I was suggesting that her husband, Peter Way, runs a company, or is part of a company that does fantastic investing, and I'm sure does some real fancy tricks with Excel. Okay, on to Q&A. We have any questions from anybody?
Are there any cues?
I don't see any.
Saul.
Well, I don't have a queue, but I do have something that might help a small minority of you that actually use Macs and have iPhones and such. You know, David has demonstrated using AirDroid to get his Android phone or tablet onto his Windows desktop to share the screen during these types of meetings. And there is a program that has been around for many decades and now is expanded into being cross-platform into Windows and Android and so forth, Linux, I think, called Reflector. It's not free, but being a little bit like Will Wakely, who is always looking for the cheap answer, okay, I found even with my old Mac, with more modern Macs that run more recent versions of the Mac operating system, it's built in to be able to do that wirelessly between your devices and the Mac to share their screen onto the main screen and so forth through Zoom. But my Mac is very old and it doesn't run the most recent Mac operating systems that do that. But what I did find on the Mac is that if you use a cable and you hook your phone up with a cable to the USB port on the Mac and you open up QuickTime, you can start a movie and it will recognize the device and share the screen, which I could demonstrate, but I don't know that anybody's interested in it, but it works. The end result is the same as using AirDroid, as David has demonstrated.
Okay, thanks, Al. Stanley?
The morning paper, I'm sorry Dan isn't here because he usually has something.
He is here.
Dan is here.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan is here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This was in the morning paper. How to complain and get results. If you get the Union Tribune, you might want to see this. The subhead is prepare to persevere and be concise, even though the pursuit is frustrating. And the paragraph headings are prepare to persevere, which is basically get your ducks in a row. Choose your venue. Don't do it if you don't need to. Be concise and recruit I don't know what recruit the rep means. But anyway, I found this quite interesting. And Saul has had recent experience of actually having success. And he might have a comment on this.
What page? So
Business section, page C3.
C3, thank you.
Yes, I need to read that because I've had several difficulties in the last couple of days. One with my phone. I quit receiving phone calls because it doesn't have voice over IP. And I had a long discussion with TrackPhone, which couldn't get any results from. And the other is someone has removed Zoom from this computer that I'm using. So I've had to go through some rigmarole to get into this meeting today. And I do not have a way to raise my hand. So I couldn't raise my hand before I started this conversation. So I need to work on both those items. And I'll read the newspaper article, see if they can help me.
Well,
For what it's worth, if I can just interject a moment, David, anybody can join a Zoom meeting just through a web browser. Zoom recommends using Google Chrome because it's most compatible, and it's just called their web client, and you don't have to have the Zoom app to join a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, you do need a Wi-Fi or other internet connection, though.
Yes, but I'm sorry, as far as the software goes, it's not as rich a user interface. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it will get you into the basic meeting.
I got in by typing in the full URL because I didn't have my other information with me and I didn't want to sign into my email account on this computer. So I typed in the full URL and that got me in through Zoom into through Google, excuse me, into the Zoom meeting. But some of the functions are not working. Like I said, I I can't raise my hand or tell them to go faster or slower or anything like that, but I can mute and unmute. And
Well, Dan, you use this Chromebook connection strictly to allow other people at your facility to participate. Is that what you do?
Yes, and no one ever shows up to participate.
Does anybody do that?
No one, very few people have ever showed up here. But I do come and put it on the computer every Saturday.
I was going to say, if there's no other people, you ought to use your old computer, your other computer, and
Well, my computer doesn't have a camera.
Oh, okay.
Well,
All right.
but for about
David?
$20, yeah, for about $20, you can fix that. And I just wanted to compliment Dan on his perseverance in coming to these meetings. We do appreciate it very much. But on the topic of complaining and getting results, when I came back from my trip to Australia, I had all these photos on Google Photos, and I went up there and I ordered a print, and it was supposed to come in about 10 days. And 10 days went by, 2 weeks went by, nothing happened. And then I tried to find out where it was, and my link it said that, well, okay, here's your tracking link, you go over there, and they say, we never heard of that package. And so I tried to get to Google Photos and say, I have a problem, it's not here. And I was pretty darn frustrated trying to get through it, but I eventually found a place. I never found a person I could talk to. I never found a chat that I could talk to them, but there was a if you have a problem email thing. And pretty much like I think that article is going to say, you go about it, you explain it clearly, what happened, what I saw, and what do I expect, and you send it off into the void. And what if, like 3 days later, I get a message saying, we have it, we looked at it, yes, we'll reorder your print for you. And about a week ago it came. And so, but it does take a while to try to go through, the computer equivalent of the phone tree to figure out where is the form that you can send that someone's going to have a look at it. Was probably 3 places I could have tried to send something that it wouldn't have worked because it wasn't going to the right place. So it's frustrating, but even with places, as big as impersonal as Google itself, there will be a place that you can at least send them a message that says, okay, here's what happened, can you fix this? And sometimes it works. I was half set to say, well, there goes the money for that one. It got lost in transit and it didn't show up. But if you get to a company, especially if it's a big reputable company, they will want to keep you as a satisfied customer and not have you bad mouthing them. So that was my little story there. But actually, as long as I have the floor, I was going to show you my one Christmas present that I thought was really sort of fun. This was my a t-shirt, and then sawdust is man glitter.
Okay.
I had that was the one they said, okay, yep. When I'm out there in my garage and running the table saw, I get glittered all over the time.
Okay, thanks, David. Ross?
So Dan was talking about being concerned about using his personal email on the shared computer. If you right click on Chrome and open a private session there, then nothing is saved to that computer. You have to type in your email address, you have to type in your password, but again, Chrome will not save anything if you're in the incognito mode, is what I guess I'm trying to say. And most of the browsers have that. If you whatever browser you choose, you can use the incognito browser mode, and it's not supposed to save anything there. That's all.
I don't think it's a problem with the Chrome browser. The computer runs through another computer here, I guess, and they give a warning message all the time that they have access to all your passwords and sites that you've visited. So I just try not to give them that. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say about having problems, my usual remedy to that is to send a certified letter to the president of the company, whoever I'm dealing with. And I've had some success with that. Usually you'll get some peon to call you back.
Okay, I have a couple of questions concerning USB cables. The standard one, is it just a data cable, or do you need a special, I'm sorry, the standard one, is that strictly a power cable, or is that also a data cable, or do you need two different USB cables? I know there is one USB cable that is a combination data and power.
Standard USB cables handle both data and power. There are some rare ones that are power only, usually used with chargers, strictly for charging a device.
Yes, they only have 2 wires.
Is that how you can tell the difference? You look inside of them and determine how many wires are there?
You can't look inside of it.
Well,
I
you can sort of look in at the end of it, and I've looked in and
Yes.
seen a certain
Yes.
number of.
You'll see the-
You
can
have
look
yours,
at-
Bill?
You'll
You
see
can
the
see the connectors. You can see the connectors, but that doesn't mean there's a wire connected to them.
Oh, good point.
So if you look, when you look on, say, Amazon for the cables, it should even descriptions there say what this one's capable of doing. And you may find one that's a longer distance and or rated as a higher power USB cable. If you're buying a $1.98 cable, then yeah, it might not be so good. I'm not saying you need to buy a $50 cable from Apple, but again, look at the specifications for the cable itself. And there, to me, there is no such thing as a standard USB cable. There's very many variations of them. Again, so you have to just look at the specifications when you say, I need a cable that does this.
Because there's.
Okay, I have several of them, and I'm trying to can I just look at them and tell whether it's power, data, or a combination?
No.
You can use one and plug something into it that uses data, and you'll know whether it's a data cable.
Yeah.
But you don't know what the power rating is on it. And that's been an issue sometimes with the Apple devices where they've needed more power and newer devices to get them charged quicker. And the older non-Apple cables wouldn't do the job.
Is that a function of how long the cable is?
It's the diameter of the wire and also of the length. So
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
Again,
And
you need
also-
to look at the specifications when you're saying, I'm looking at Amazon to buy a cable and say, I need to have it do these things.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Another question. What VPN is recommended? Ross, I think.
Lots of them are recommended by somebody.
Which one would you recommend, Ross?
I use private VPN. And you just need to look at the reviews and see which ones are popular today. They give you a level of security. So I will use the private VPN. Then I'll also go in and use the browser's incognito mode. So I'm hoping that I'm getting a little more privacy. But as Dan mentioned, they can still see what web pages you're going to. Your internet provider can see what web pages you're going to. And sometimes if you're using a VPN, you're not allowed to go to certain web pages. It says, nope, can't do that until we can see who you are and what web page you're coming from. Or
Interesting.
IP location you're coming from.
You said the name of that is private?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A third quick question. I'm trying to run my solar panels that are on my roof when the grid is turned off, and I'm told I cannot do that. Anybody have a way to get around that so that I can actually use my power from my solar when the grid is off?
To me, that would be, you need to find a solar installer and say, this is what I want to be able to do. And to be able to do that, that means to me, you need to have your own batteries so
Yep.
that you're charging your batteries and then you be pulling off of those batteries. The reason you have to have a connection to the grid is so it knows how to sync that information up to what cycle and then be able to push it back to the grid. So most of them, you're right, the same way, shut down if you lose power from the grid.
Yeah, it seems as that would be the thing you would want to use your batteries for anyway, is when the grid is off. Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's all my questions. Any other questions that any people have?
Pat has some posts in the chat.
Okay, Pat asks everyone, and
Yeah.
Dan, is your track phone using 3G?
Pat has
She was asking Dan.
yeah. But she also says, I'd like to hear a future presentation on Windows 11 and/or Windows 10 privacy settings, privacy settings, and privacy features. Anybody here feel competent to speak on that subject, or willing to do enough willing to know enough research to get competent?
I can do that, and give me 2 weeks and I'll come back and say, most of the time, the default settings are fine in the computer. If you say, I don't want anybody to know where I am, again, there's a lot of places that won't do business with you or let you use their websites unless you tell them who you are. It's the same way with advertising. If you block all the advertising, the websites will say, nope, you're not playing by our rules. We need to make money. We need to be able to advertise to you. So it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, Ross, you're saying you will talk about privacy settings and features in 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Dan. This is Dan.
Go ahead.
My track phone, I asked them at Walmart whether it was going to be usable in last year. And they told me it was a 4G track phone and it was usable, but the first of the year, it doesn't have VoIP. So now you need to have VoIP to use it. So I guess just because it has 4G doesn't make any difference.
Dan, I have a track phone also. Does that mean my phone is not going to work?
Probably. Did you get a message on the phone that said it's not going to work?
Does this just have to do with phone calls, receiving and
Phone
sending?
calls, right. The phone will do everything else except do phone calls. And that's the reason I have the phone, is for emergency phone calls. I very seldom use it, but I have a phone now that I can go on the internet with and I can take pictures with, but I can't make phone calls with it.
Is there a solution to it?
Well, the solution is a new phone.
Can your phone connect to your local Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Then I'm not saying it can, but that's generally all you need to have to get the cell phones to work for sending and receiving phone calls. You don't need to have a cellular service. If you have Wi-Fi connected to the phone, that should allow you to make phone calls. Voice over IP, that's just a service in the phone, like Magic Jack, or I use Uma on my internet connection. And I've not heard that you need to have, I'm not saying you don't, but I have not heard that you have to have that in your phone. But if that's what TrackPhone is telling you, then that's what you're going to have to do.
Yes, and TracFone told me they would give me a new phone, but they couldn't verify my phone by sending a text message to it because I couldn't see the text message. So I'm still working with them. I don't know.
Okay, well, there are two ways to make phone calls. One is direct through your through track phone up into
Cell
the
service.
sky, and the other is through VoIP. Is that correct?
I have a house phone which works with VoIP. Okay, and they tell me I can't switch back to regular phone service. But anyway, it's a VoIP phone, so I use VoIP on my house phone.
Yeah.
My track phone, they tell me it can't do VoIP, so therefore I can't make any voice calls, any
Well,
phone calls.
Can't you go directly to your track phone satellite? If that's what it is?
It's a cell tower.
It's
Cell
yeah,
tower?
yeah. Basically, you want to use your cellular service. There's your track phone should you be able to use a cellular service when you're in range of that service.
But I think you've answered the question, Dan. If track phone saying you need to do different piece of hardware, then that's what you're going to need to do.
Yes, they tell me I need a new phone. That's what it amounts to, bottom line.
And you
you'll have
said
to
they'll
be
give you
somewhere.
one?
He said they would give him one, but he had trouble getting the text
Yeah,
message.
okay. Well, I have a track phone, so I need to check it out.
Yes.
Okay, other questions, comments, interesting things? Anybody? Oh, Dan, Stan?
That's my usual reminder. Next week will be a board meeting. And I will get an agenda out to everyone. But that's all I have to say is next week will be a board meeting. And then the normal Q&A following, no need for a special presentation.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Did anybody watch the political theater last night?
Yes, I did.
Putting
I
McCarthy.
I did.
I watched the whole thing. It was absolutely fascinating when he got elected, and the Democrat spent 15 minutes supposedly introducing him, but he didn't really introduce him. He spent most of his time pushing his agenda. And then finally, the new speaker got the podium, and I thought gave a damn good speech. I might be prejudiced.
Well, but Hank,
would-
why are you surprised at politicians acting like politicians?
I wasn't surprised.
Well, yeah, this is an exceptional occurrence, certainly worthy of note.
I hope it stays exceptional.
Willie?
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody watched that Frontline special that somebody mentioned. I did watch it on Pegasus and the spyware.
No.
I watched it also. And it's supposed to be the second half is supposed to be this Tuesday at 10.
Yes.
Where is that shown, Willie?
PBS,
Hmm.
10 o'clock Tuesday, I believe.
And
I'm
the
not sure what day it is.
And what's the name of the show?
It's called Frontline.
Frontline. Okay.
Really, it was a documentary on this Pegasus program that basically governments can buy the program. It's an Israeli company that sells it, and they basically via nefarious methods they get into your phone, not your phone, but it's anybody's phone, and they can just extract everything you do on your phone. They're mostly targeting journalists and things, but it's and terrorists. It was meant to be finding terrorist communication links. But
Well, doesn't the NSA do that already?
yeah, but the Pegasus, the company that runs it, says that they did not sell it to the U.S. government. They're only selling it to other governments.
Well, that's not the way I understand it.
We have our own.
But when you get to NSA and CIA and those kind of people. You don't know what they're using. And the name of the program is Frontline, not Online.
Frontline.
Frontline, and like I say, the Israelis say it's not available to a lot of countries that they don't agree with, I guess, or it's not available to private people. But I take exception to that too, probably.
So you're saying they won't sell it to Iran?
Well, I don't know. I guess not.
Only if they install the big back door.
Hank?
But, you know, they have all this secret stuff going around, and they're not the only people that can do it. So, you know, that's the one that's for sale right now. But, and they have a new one coming out that's called Graphite.
On the subject of
Hank left us.
He'll be back.
He has a different view than I do of all those secret people out there, the CIA and NSA or whatever you call them.
He's back.
Not quite.
And the Congress is supposed to trying to make a law to stop them from using that program at this time, but they may never get around to making another law the way things are going right now. But that's the latest thing on the agenda is Congress doesn't want them to use the program.
I don't know that Congress has any say in it.
Well, probably not. They can make a law. Whether anybody follows the law or not is another subject.
Go ahead, Hank.
I started to say, until I got bumped off for the 14th time, that some years ago, there was a highly cleared employee of maybe NSA that revealed all sorts of stuff. He's now in Russia and can't go anywhere else. And there was such an uproar about what the NSA had been doing about listening to private conversations that the NSA promised they would never do that anymore.
Right.
Now you know everything you need to know about that.
Okay, back to you, Hank. I guess we're done with, someone is, Arlene would like to speak. Arlene, you're muted.
I think she was waving goodbye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she's now gone.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
everybody. We'll see you next week for the board meeting. And I will once again say, anybody who has something that they do that they think other people might like to do on their computer, please send me an email and I'll recruit you. The floor.
Okay, I'm asking
the ceiling and the walls.
Saul don't close the meeting, Hank. Leave it open. Let Saul close the meeting.
What?
Please let Saul close the meeting. If there's anybody, I would like to speak with Saul. Others might want to talk to others. A little bit of chat sometimes goes on after people drop out.
I will leave the meeting and turn it over to Saul.
You can transfer the host to me if you want, Hank, and I will send you a video. I unfortunately didn't start recording until the first time you dropped out, but I'll send you what I have, and if you want to splice together what you had before that for posting on the website.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested in the presentation, it is, Hank says it's up on the website and available. That was a useful 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to say goodbye.
Oh, hold on a second, Dave. I wanted to,
Sure.
I'd like to talk to you about fast Fourier transforms offline if we can.
Sure.
Okay. Can I just send you an email?
Yeah.
Let me say one more thing. I made a copy of that article on how to get things done or how to get response. I will be happy to send it to, I guess I'll send it to everyone who participates on here in case someone who has already signed off wants to see that.
Yeah, I thought they had some good tips.
And
Well,
that's,
one of the tips was just be nice. But I keep forgetting that.
that is good advice any day of the week.
I know, Stanley, it's hard to go against your nature.